Good afternoon, everyone. In today's session, we are going to go over financial aid and the cost of college. My name is Sicily Shannon. I am going to be one of your presenters for today, as well as going over some of the slides in the end. Also joining us is Randi Whalen from Southwestern College. She is going to go ahead and get us started. So Miss Randi, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to you.
Thank you, Sicily. Let's start by talking about financial aid offer letters. What is an offer letter? Also called a financial aid award letter, they are sent after a student submits the FAFSA. They outline aid offered by the school. They show estimated costs versus financial assistance, and they help students decide how to pay for college. These letters are sent after the FAFSA is processed, after admission to the institution, once verification, if required, is complete, and they may take 2 to 6 weeks after all documents are submitted. What is listed in my offer letter? First, cost of attendance, which is an estimate of the total cost to attend school. This typically includes tuition and fees, books and supplies, housing and food, transportation, and personal expenses. It is important to understand that this is not your exact bill, but rather a budgeting estimate. Types of financial aid you qualify for. This may include grants and scholarships, which do not need to be repaid. It may also include federal work study, which allows students to earn money through part-time employment. Federal student loans available to you, such as direct subsidized loans, direct unsubsidized loans, or PLUS loans. Unlike grants and scholarships, loans must be repaid with interest and must be accepted in order to be processed. Here is an example offer letter. You can see the cost of attendance, the offer letter example continued. You can see grants and scholarships, estimated net cost, student loan options, your estimated cost, and additional options. How does a student receive a financial aid offer letter? Submit the FAFSA through studentaid.gov. Be admitted into an eligible academic program at the school. Complete all required documents, such as verification, so the school can finalize the award. Accessing your offer letter. Some schools will mail physical copies of offer letters directly to incoming students. Most schools handle offer letters completely electronically and send them via email. Log into the school's financial aid portal or student account. Check your school email for a notification that your offer is available. Comparing offer letters. When applying to multiple schools, compare total cost of attendance, COA, at each school, not just tuition. Focus on your out-of-pocket cost after grants and scholarships are applied. Separate gift aid, free money, from loans when reviewing offers. Adjust estimated costs based on your actual enrollment status and credit hours. Subtract your financial aid eligibility from the total COA to estimate what you may owe. Review loan terms carefully, including interest rates, repayment terms, and total borrowing amount. Consider whether grants or scholarships are renewable and what is required to maintain eligibility. Compare long-term impact, not just the first-year cost. Here you can see examples from two schools, School A and School B. School A is based on 30 credits per academic year, on-campus housing required for first-year students, and School B is based on 24 credits per academic year, on-campus housing is optional. Here is the examples continued. Comparison results. Even though School B has a higher total cost, it actually results in a lower net cost because of the larger institutional scholarship. School A net cost is $16,705. School B net cost is $12,205. School B is $4,500 less expensive overall after gift aid. Cost of attendance. What is cost of attendance, or COA? COA is the estimated total cost to attend school for one academic year. It includes tuition, fees, books, housing, transportation, and personal expenses. It is used to determine a student's financial aid eligibility. It is not the exact bill owed. What are the components of COA? If you're attending school at least half time, the COA is an estimate of direct costs, which are billed by the school. These include tuition and fees, mandatory fees, such as fees for technology, student activity, security or safety, registration and admin, facility or campus fees, on-campus housing, if applicable, and meal plan, if applicable. It also includes indirect costs, which are estimated expenses. These include books and supplies, off-campus housing, transportation, and personal miscellaneous expenses. Components of COA can also include allowance for childcare or other dependent care, costs related to a disability, costs of obtaining a license, certification, or a first professional credential, reasonable costs for eligible study abroad programs. Direct costs. Direct costs are expenses that are billed directly by the school and must be paid to the institution in order to enroll and attend. These typically include tuition, mandatory fees, and on-campus housing or meal plans if applicable. Indirect costs. Indirect costs are estimated expenses associated with attending school that are not billed directly by the institution. These may include books and supplies, off-campus housing, transportation, and personal expenses. While they are part of the cost of attendance, students typically pay these costs out of pocket rather than directly to the school. Here you can see direct versus indirect costs. Direct billable costs may include tuition, fees, housing, and meals if living on campus. Indirect, non-billable costs may include housing and meals if living off campus, books and supplies, personal expenses, and transportation. Here is an example of cost of attendance, or COA. What are the types of aid? Scholarships and grants. These do not require repayment. They are gift aid, may be specific, tuition only, program based, or general, can apply toward overall cost of attendance, may be need based, merit based, or a combination of both, often require minimum enrollment status, full time or part time, Students must maintain eligibility, which may include satisfactory academic progress, SAP, GPA requirements, continued financial need for need-based aid. Some awards are renewable, while others are one-time only. Estimated net cost. Estimated net cost is the amount a student is expected to pay after grants and scholarships, gift aid, have been subtracted from the total cost of attendance. It reflects what remains before loans or payment plans are considered and helps students understand their out-of-pocket responsibility. Example, if a school's total cost of attendance is $25,000 and the student receives $10,000 in grants and scholarships, the estimated net cost would be $25,000 minus $10,000 equals $15,000. That $15,000 represents the remaining amount the student would need to cover through savings, work-study earnings, loans, or a payment plan. Other types of aid. Federal work-study. How is eligibility determined? How do students apply for on-campus positions? How many hours can a student work? And how are students paid? Does work-study reduce future aid eligibility? Federal student loans. What types of federal loans are available? How much should a student borrow? What are the interest rates and repayment terms? When does repayment begin? What are the deferment or forgiveness options? These are important questions to ask. Estimated remaining cost. Estimated remaining cost is the amount a student is expected to owe after all financial aid, including grants, scholarships, and accepted loans, has been applied to the total cost of attendance. It represents the balance that must still be covered through payment plans, personal funds, or additional borrowing options. Example, if the total cost of attendance is $25,000 and the student receives $10,000 in grants and scholarships, $5,000 in accepted student loans, the total aid applied would be $15,000. $25,000 minus $15,000 equals $10,000 estimated remaining cost. The $10,000 is the amount the student would still need to pay or make arrangements to cover.
So now we're going to talk about additional considerations. One of the considerations when applying for federal student aid is the Student Aid Index. This is the number that is calculated from the FAFSA application, and it determines a student's eligibility for federal student aid. Previously, it was known as the Expected Family Contribution, or the EFC, and so the SAI has now replaced EFC. It is used by schools to calculate a student's financial need. It can range from a negative number up to a higher positive number. The lower the SAI, generally one can expect a greater financial need. The SAI does not represent the exact amount a family must pay for college. So when it comes to factoring, it is the cost of attendance minus a student's SAI, and that will show what their financial need, their financial need is for school purposes. When we look at financial aid need or financial need, it is the COA, or cost of attendance, minus the SAI, Student Aid Index. That's going to equal the financial need. The COA minus the SAI, or the FOA, equals the remaining need. As we can see, OFA is other financial assistance. Financial need and remaining need do vary between schools because cost of attendance is institution specific. When a student has a lower SAI, it generally does result in them having higher financial need or demonstrating higher financial aid need. Schools do use financial need to determine a student's eligibility for need-based aid, such as the Pell Grant, SEOG grant, and subsidized loan. It's important to note that the SAI does not represent the exact amount a family would need to pay. Remaining need is not guaranteed to be fully covered by the institution. Even if financial need is high, aid packages may vary based on available funding. So as you can see here, we have a financial need comparison. We have School A and School B. You can see with School A that the cost of attendance is $26,800. The SAI is $2,000, and so therefore the need becomes $24,800. Again, to determine this, we take the COA minus the SAI. We then look to see what aid is awarded, and so after all of that is applied for School A, the remaining need is $13,905. If you look at School B, it does have a little bit higher of a cost of attendance. And so deduct the SAI, the need is now $27,400. We have the aid awarded. As you can see, some of the grants and scholarships are the same, some are different. It leaves the remaining need at $13,005. So the takeaways are that even with the same student aid index or SAI, financial need can differ because the cost of attendance is school specific. Higher cost of attendance does not always mean higher out-of-pocket costs. Institutional scholarships can significantly impact a student's remaining need, and remaining need is not automatically covered. Loans or payment options may still be required. Adjustments to cost of attendance. In certain situations, a school does have the ability to adjust a student's COA to reflect actual expenses rather than standard estimates. COA adjustments may allow a student to become eligible for additional financial aid, typically in the form of loans. Adjustments do not automatically increase grants or scholarships. Additional adjustments that can be made for cost of attendance could be things like medical, dental, or disability related expenses for the student not covered by insurance. If the student has dependent care or child care expenses, some students may need additional computer purchases to be required for their academic use, and so adjustments can be made for a one-time purchase. Additional required educational expenses, program-specific equipment, tools, uniform, licensing fees. If the student has higher than average transportation expenses, these can be documented and adjust that COA. There could also be things such as excess housing or food costs, including expenses related to dependents. There's also things with study abroad program costs, and then other documented unusual circumstances can be reviewed on a case-by-case basis. If a student's documented expenses exceed the standard amounts included in their COA, the school may be able to increase the COA to reflect the actual costs. In most cases, students must submit supporting documentation through their school's financial aid office or online portal. A financial aid administrator will then review the request and determine the eligibility for a COA adjustment. If approved, the adjusted COA may allow the student to qualify for additional financial aid. Typically, we do see this in the form of federal student loans. An important reminder is that cost of attendance adjustments do not guarantee additional grant funding. All adjustments are reviewed on a case-by-case basis by the aid officer at the school. When it comes to enrollment, financial aid offers are typically based on a student enrolling full-time. Usually this means 12 credit hours or more per semester. Aid eligibility and award amounts may change if a student enrolls less than full-time. There are also some impacts on aid. One could be the Kansas Comprehensive Grant. It does require full-time enrollment. With the federal Pell Grant, it will adjust based on enrollment intensity. So if a student is full-time, three-quarter time, half-time, or less than half-time, their federal Pell Grant will be based on that intensity. Federal student loans generally do require at least half-time enrollment or higher. Generally, this is 6 credit hours or more. Tuition charges do adjust based on enrolled credit hours. Some components of the cost of attendance may remain constant. This could include housing, books, and personal expenses, while others could adjust with enrollment. Some additional important considerations are that dropping or withdrawing from courses may reduce a student's aid eligibility. Changes in enrollment after disbursement may result in a balance owed. Students should notify the financial aid office before making enrollment changes to understand the impact that it could have on their financial aid. So all students generally are going to have a bill. This slide is going to go over what is that bill. Generally, it includes the direct cost of college or the charges that are billed by the school specifically. Generally, they include tuition. This is based on the student's actual enrollment. Schools may charge tuition per credit hour, and in some cases offer a flat rate or full-time rate for students. Some schools have mandatory fees. This could include things such as campus fees, technology fees, student health services, lab fees, program-specific fees, and other required institutional charges. And then if applicable, some schools have on-campus housing and meal plans. This would be billed directly by the institution if selected or required. What is my bill continued? It is going to include the direct cost of college again, so on-campus housing and meals. Again, this is if applicable. It is going to be based on the student's selected housing assignment and meal plan. These charges do appear on the student account if housing is chosen or required. Some schools have a live on campus requirement for first-year students, while others allow students to live off campus, providing their own housing and meals. Important notes to understand about one's bill. It does only reflect the direct costs that are billed by the institution. So again, tuition, mandatory fees, and on-campus housing if applicable. Off-campus housing, groceries, transportation, and personal expenses are not billed by the school. These are considered indirect costs. Financial aid is applied directly to a student's account to reduce their balance. If aid exceeds the direct charges, the student can then receive a refund. If aid does not fully cover the direct costs, the student would owe the remaining balance or need to plan to set up a payment plan if offered by the school. Disbursement. Disbursement timelines do vary by school. Federal financial aid cannot be dispersed more than 10 days prior to the start of the term per federal regulations. Some aid may disperse at multiple points throughout the term. It is up to the school. And how disbursements work. So financial aid funds are applied first or dispersed to the student's school account to pay the direct charges that the school bills for, such as the tuition, the fees, and the on-campus housing, again, if applicable. If the total financial aid exceeds the billed charges, the remaining balance is considered a credit. That credit is then issued to the student as a refund, typically through direct deposit to their bank account or by check. So to wrap it up, it's okay to apply to multiple schools and compare financial aid offers. We always encourage students to not be afraid to ask questions about costs, aid eligibility, and certainly about renewal requirements. It's important to always compare the net costs, not just the tuition or the total overall COA or cost of attendance. It's important to review the loan terms carefully before accepting a loan. And then accept the financial aid offer from the school that you plan to attend. Contact other schools to decline or cancel aid once you have made your decision. It's important to always monitor your student portal and email for important updates and deadlines, as that's where most schools are going to process their communication. And then we always want to make sure that students understand their enrollment status requirements to maintain their eligibility for their federal student aid. If there's any questions, we encourage you to certainly please reach out and let us know. We are happy to answer those as those come in. We do have an upcoming save the date professional judgment. And actually, I believe this happened yesterday. But if you would, please go to KASFAA.org. You can see it posted online. Definitely check that out if you have any questions about those. You can scan the QR code on the screen. I do believe it'll take you to where you can find that recording has been completed. Thank you so much for attending today. We greatly appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you at future